What's
You
up,
can.
everybody? Welcome to the Save Point Podcast, episode 13. I'm one of your hosts, Alex, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend Sway. And we're here to, we'll do a couple of things. We, of course, want to talk about what we've been up to over the last week. We want to center this video on E3. We've had that Ubisoft comments. Ubisoft will be going. Almost put E3 in doubt, or it sounded like E3 may or may not even happen. E3 comes out, right? They say, no, we're for sure happening this year. So, we'll go back and forth. We can talk about, if it's dying, dead, our memories of E3. Lots we can, I'm sure, say about E3. And then as these weeks go on, let me say this. I'm actually going to remember it this time. If you guys have any comments or questions, let us know in the comments section. You can message Sway or at him on Twitter as well. My Twitter's gone. You can do it on Discord, I suppose, on our Discord server. But any questions, any topics you want us to talk about in the podcast, feel free. We got an empty week really next week, so maybe you and I can like hassle people for topics, and next week can be like a viewer thing, because then we'll do Resident Evil and stuff. So Sway, how are you? And what you been playing over the last 7 days?
Doing pretty good. Hogwarts Legacy. A little bit of Fire Emblem in there.
Oh
A
my
little
God,
bit of
it's
Fire
returned.
Emblem. It's the return. And then just on top of that, it's just grinding out both games, multiple systems for Hogwarts Legacy. Couldn't tell you where I am on either one. Like as far as like because I just decided to like grind Merlin trials and everything of that nature. So I'm like doing both wherever I can. What about you,
Nice.
Alex?
I just Yakuza actually. So I mentioned last week. I think I started it last week, but I did. I was looking through games. Hogwarts. I love it. I really do like Hogwarts. I do plan on returning. My wife actually, she is so close to the platinum of Hogwarts. It's not even funny. But even her, she's put like 76 hours in. She's a little burnt out. I didn't even put like 40 hours in. I was a little all right. I'm not. I wouldn't say burnt out, but I feel all right. I've done it and I've talked about it for so long. Let me take a break. I'll return to it. Of course, if there's DLC and stuff, I'd return. I'm still doing videos. So I was like, okay, I need a new thing. What's going to be my new thing? Because, Wolong comes out this week, but nothing else until Resident Evil. So I'm like, all right, I have some weeks here. Let's play some older games. And I look back and I think I see the Yakuza franchise on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. And I say, okay, I've heard so many things about Yakuza, and my friend's playing it, and he loves them to death, and he always tells me to play them. So I wanted to do it in chronological order, which means the prequel game first, so Yakuza 0. So I did that, and actually, as of last night of when we're recording this, last night I beat it. And oh my dear God, it's spectacular. And I would consider myself a converted Yakuza fan. I downloaded Kiwami, the remake of 1. So I'll probably play that. I don't want to, there's no way I'm going to be able to play all, 11 of these things in a row. Just absolutely no way. So I'm probably going to play, I did 0. I'll play 1. Then I'll probably take a break, come back, do 2, 3, 4, do a couple each time. Those games are a wild ride. But they take, you have to read it. There's so much reading. There's so much focus, laser focus you have to do on those games to understand everything. It actually reminded me of Kingdom Hearts because it's like, it's not as complicated, but because it's all in Japanese and you're reading it all, and it's like, oh my God, it's actually kind of hard. These different clans and families and stuff. So I was struggling a little bit, but I watched some story explains to fill in any gaps in my knowledge. But yeah, so Yakuza all the way. Have you, what's your, just aside, I mean, we do this quite often. What's your take on the Yakuza? How many have you played? How much you know?
I've honestly only played Yakuza 0.
Okay, same with and the
So
thing that sucks is what I've heard. I saw multiple rankings. Yakuza 0 is the best game in the franchise to so many people. So many of these ranking of worst to best, the best is always Yakuza 0. So the thing that scares me is I've played, I've played the best one. But people will say there's really no weak game in the franchise. So that makes me happy. But I do feel, I messaged my friend, I was like, I didn't know this game was considered the best game because, yeah, like you said, is it going to be all downhill now? I don't know.
I think it's I have a few friends that has played the entire series and they echo the same thing that you've been hearing, which is like that entire franchise is just
It's gold.
golden. It's golden, and I just can't. It's like anime for me, right? Like it's if I haven't started it yet, it's a serious time investment,
It
and
is.
that time investment scares me. So
That's true,
I'm like,
man. That's
I want to put
it's
it
there's a
aside.
barrier of entry to
Yes,
Yakuza that I imagine is like Kingdom Hearts and like Final Fantasy, where it can be daunting. There's so many of them, and there's spin-offs and multiple spin-offs actually. So to go in, and I think there's like I said 11, or I think there's like 13 or so games if you count spin-offs and stuff. I mean, that is and they're like 20, 30, 40
right.
hours each. So you're looking at hundreds upon, or almost 1,000 hours. Like, it's nuts, and that's it's a lot. And also, it's not perfect. Like, the story is spectacular and the characters, but the combat is very repetitive. You do the same things. So things like that. It really is actually a game. I'll be honest. It's a game that you probably could just watch the cutscenes online, like the story. So I'm gonna play them all, but it's gonna be like Kingdom Hearts, where like if I ever want to go back, I probably only will play my favorites, because I do that with Kingdom Hearts. I only play like my top 5 or something, and then the rest I just watch, because you don't really need to play them. Let's be honest. Some of them. Kingdom Hearts 2
Yep.
is of course one of the greatest, but it feels a lot like Kingdom Hearts, to be honest.
Yeah, I would compare it to that too. Like franchise, staying power,
Yeah,
story quality. I
complexity.
think that yes, complexity. I think that they're very comparable, and I think that just being able to go through the series, if you can get through it, is great. But if you've also, like, I look at it like Fire Emblem, it's like if you've been on top of it as it's been happening, or like you've went back and caught the ones that you missed before you started playing,
Yeah.
yeah, you're looking like, man, I love this franchise. It has never failed me. But if you're like you've never played anything, it's just like, okay, I don't know when I'm gonna do this. I
That's
don't know
true.
when. So
Isn't it
that's me
isn't
and
it a
Yakuza
weird
right now.
feel, like there's something special about like being with the franchise for so long, right? And being able to
Yes.
say that kind of thing. Like I think that with Kingdom Hearts, where it's like I was around during, and I didn't even play all the games at the time, but I would watch them, and I've watched them multiple times since. But it's like I've been around since Kingdom Hearts 2. I guess I didn't play Kingdom Hearts 1 when it released, but yeah, it's a contrast where it's like you just feel like you're a part of each entry. Whereas, well, I mean, I'm gonna feel like that now with Yakuza, right? Like I'm gonna get all the new, even though I just, that Like an Ishin that just came out, I didn't get that yet, but but I'm in, so once I'm gonna try to go through them all within the next like year and a half, 2 years, and then I'd be caught up from that point, on. But that's a different feeling, right? Going back into the backlog and playing it now versus, like you said, people that are like, well, I've played every one, and yeah, it's always been good. And it's like such a difference.
Such a difference. And it's like a pride thing kind of too,
Yeah.
like where it's like people love to say, because it gives you a different feeling than just like catching up sooner. It's like
Yeah.
some people have grown up with this series. Some people have, you know, just got into the series and they're just taken in by it, and so everything is kind of more newer to them.
Yeah.
And either way, they're both good feelings. But
Yeah.
it's a trophy. It's a trophy in itself. It's a platinum trophy in itself. Okay.
I can't imagine the platinum actually for Yakuza 0 is notoriously not fun because you have to play, I think, on the hardest difficulty, and that game's hard. That game's hard. But speaking of games, I mean that's the whole podcast. E3. So I want to hear
Yes.
from you, man. Well, where are you? So I've said it in videos before. Like I'm not impressed in the last like 5-6 years from E3. I think its only value is getting people together. That's where the gaming industry kind
Yep.
of meets. You go back and forth. I think it's got value in that way. But Jeff Keighley's got that as well. So for me, I think E3 has died off a long time ago. I don't really think it's necessary. It's a shell of its former self. But what's your kind of history with where you think E3's gone over the last like 10 years?
E3 is for me, it's completely a nostalgia trip for me.
Yeah.
I've grown up watching it. I even remember when G4 used to show it, like on their channel. And watching it on cable occasionally. It's just something that's always been there for a good chunk of my life. So
Yeah.
it was it's something that I always root for to get better, come back in its form or a better form, only because of what it's meant to me, but
Yeah.
it's been dead. It's been dead. I think my favorite one ironically is 2018.
Ooh.
But it's the fact that they was able to pull people together, the performances that they had, the atmosphere that they're just able to get, the way that the crowd reacts, the
Yeah.
people made E3 even more special than it probably really was. And just having an event where you get to go even as fans and like get to try out demos of games that you won't get to try out
But here's
like
the
just
thing: the
anywhere else.
fan part that was newer, right? That was in the last like
Yep.
4 or 5 years. But before, I don't know what year, but maybe 2018, 2019. Those were some of the
20.
first
Yep.
years they let people in. And you're right. I
And
mean,
so
it changes. Like when you think of the fans exploding from a trailer or something, like those are powerful, and that's what
yes.
Comic-Con and PAX, like that's what they have at their advantage. And there'll always be something very special about that to those older trailers where you hear the crowd erupt. Like God of War, I can think of being one. You know, the very first teaser for Kratos and God of War 2018, like the crowd blowing up. Like it's very special.
Very. It's magical. And I think that that's the reason why 2018 um was so special to me, because of that crowd reaction, because of the announcements that they had, which made the crowd reaction even more wilder. It was an entire atmosphere that you even like the soundtracks for the game that year. The performances were great because all most of those games had great soundtracks.
Yeah,
And so I think for the most part, just the event in general, like for me, younger me, the appeal was always the announcements, the
yeah,
early showings, the trailers. That's why you're there, really, like to see what's coming out next and to get excited, even if you're not getting it in the immediate future.
yeah,
And then it kind of evolved into what we know, or our last iteration of what we've seen.
yeah,
But you got Jeff Keighley now with the Game Awards, and it's pretty much taking his place. And it's
yeah,
like, I don't think they have the same financial hassle that E3 has. They don't have the same stigma
yeah.
that E3 has
He's
now.
well liked. He knows everybody. People come to yeah. That's
Exactly.
I think he took inspiration. I mean, because like his shows are the old time E3. You know, a lot of
E3.
talking to the audience and just announcement after announcement, and then of course the Game Awards doing the actual awards themselves. Yeah, it's tough because like I think back to E3, and I like when I first started making my channel. E3 was a time like I was so the first maybe 3 years, 2 years, because I started in March of 2015. So then I think I skipped maybe that E3. I don't even think we did anything. So probably 16, 17, 18. Like I had my schedule. I stayed up like 22 hours, and then like, but I also think even right before then, when I was, even younger than that, and you go on IGN and, they have their schedule, and it's not just the conference, some these are like maybe like the Saturday night, all day Sunday, and then Monday. And Monday normally was Nintendo and stuff, sometimes Sony at night. So you had that, and then like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'd go to these sites and they'd have the breakdown, and there'd be like 30 games they see and
Yes.
interview people and all this. And like that was the golden era. To me, like I don't know what it was like before that in say the late 2000s or even really early 2010s, but probably 2010 onward, I'd say, when you go to those sites and you see those 30 games. And I would kind of block out time. I would say, okay, when I come home from school, I got to go back, because you could click them and it would take you to the video. It's like I got to hear them interview whoever about this game. There was just so much content. It was back in a more simpler time. People were focusing on the games and not other things, so that certainly helped. Like it
Yep.
just worked really well. And then it's, but as the internet got, or as everything kind of evolved, let's say, and the power started going to these companies, not the ESA and E3, you could just do it. The worst thing with E3 is just that you can replicate it on your own. That's it.
Yep.
It's nothing too special. So when Nintendo was the first one. when Nintendo decided we're not going, that was a huge. Do you remember that? That was a huge deal. They were the first ones.
They were the first domino.
Yeah. They did Nintendo Direct, and Sony literally then copied that, with their things. And but losing Nintendo was massive, and then you lose Sony, and then eventually now you lose Microsoft. And I mean, what else? So that brings us, I guess, to right now. What are you going into 2023's E3 like thinking it's gonna be?
I think third parties are going to carry it. Third parties and indies. If they have a real strong showing from third parties, I think that it can be salvaged easily. I think honestly, like Sony obviously will say if they did a state of play, obviously they have their first party titles, but E3 could easily make up for that with the amount of third parties. But that's the thing though. You're competing with Jeff Keighley at this point.
Yes.
So it's like who's going to choose E3 over Jeff Keighley and vice versa.
Yeah.
That's the kicker. I don't even think that the competition at this point is even with the first party companies. I think Jeff Keighley is their biggest Achilles heel right now.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think like first parties will have you'll have a PlayStation showcase of sort. You'll have and I think the Xbox thing is not confirmed, but it's heavily speculated. They're doing a thing during E3 week, and they're literally just going to do their own thing, which is very Nintendo-like, and that's honestly kind of like a big punch in the face where it's like not only are we not going to do it, but we're going to do it the same week as you, just kind of like down the street. And like we'll be bigger. Don't worry. Like we'll pass you. That's like Nintendo started off doing that. Microsoft is most likely going to do it this year. But then you go to the third parties, and like Ubisoft obviously is a big one. Ubisoft has said out loud like we have a lot to show at E3. But then you think about Jeff Keighley. We know how much Jeff Keighley actually hates. It seems like he hates E3. He hates that company. So I think he's got a chip on his shoulder to just be a better show. Yep. And Summer Game Fest is pretty 50-50. Like, it's got some good stuff, but also has not. But I think he'll, like, go out there and some of these like, if he can snatch a Sega announcement or a Warner Bros. Thing instead of going to E3, I think he'd do it. And I think that's what you would see at, like, Summer Game or EA. If you can see Dragon Age at Summer Game Fest and not E3, like, I think that's possible because of just those relationships. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's going to be third parties, and it's going to be third parties who choose E3 over their own thing, over Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, or over Jeff Keighley's Gamescom, because Jeff Keighley has a monopoly on these things.
Yep, he's the mecca. He's the one-stop shop for it all. So I think he honestly, I could see third parties. I do believe third party like Ubisoft, for example. They're going to E3, and I think that there are some companies that I would almost compare it to kind of like publications, where you'll have companies who love to deal with content creators, and then you have ones who strongly believe in the publications.
Yeah,
I strongly believe there's going to be companies that's like E3 is like been the thing that we always knew, and so if it's back, we would rather go there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know financially what they're willing to spend because they lose money on E3 every year.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they're really like prepared to go in and just like, let's take the biggest loss ever and just make this a great show, that's another way that I could easily see them outdoing Jeff Keighley's show.
Yeah.
It would suck for you business wise, but you'd win.
Yeah. Well, the pricing has always been like, I looked up the pricing for the Game Awards is not outrageous, but it's like shocking. I think it was maybe even for like an indie thing. Maybe it's like for any game. It's like $40,000-$50,000 you pay to Jeff Keighley and that business to do something at the Game Awards. So it's like nuts. And I assume, because I think I've one time looked it up for like E3. I mean, it's the same thing. Summer Game Fest, you pay him. E3, you pay him. You're right. Because Jeff Keighley can come in at a better price, or E3, they could say, well, yeah, this is our first time back. We really got to take a hit so we can charge lower so we can just get more announcements, and maybe it works out later. You have to embrace the online thing while also doing the in-person thing. And I think Jeff Keighley kind of has nailed that already with the Game Awards. Like, he's already ahead of and he's going to, I believe this is the first year he's doing it for Summer Game Fest as well. I think that's in person, and normally it's not. So that's probably where they're at a disadvantage. Even though like E3 has always been partially online, but it's not really through them. It's actually fully on the backs of these sites. And that's maybe the biggest problem of them all. You know what I mean? Jeff Keighley always very nice with, we want streamers. We want people to co-stream us. That's a huge thing with him. And then with E3, it's more, well, IGN will stream it. GameSpot will. And then if you want to stream it, well, you'll have to stream their stream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, so all this backdoor stuff. So they're really going to have to, they really have to cut out the middleman, funny enough. Kind of like Jeff Keighley's done. They need to cut out and the middleman is the publications. Oddly enough, we're back to them again.
That's exactly what needs to happen at this point. Make it more accessible with people. That way they can have their favorite personalities kind of react to the games as they're watching them. It's a better fan experience. And the publications, all they're gonna do is, like right now they have a bad rep anyway. So like making people click a publication that they don't like to watch that product is gonna make them go in with an irritated, mindset in some form or fashion. I think that they need to be open minded. I'm not saying like don't let the publication show it, but I'm saying let everybody show it. Like at least give them that option, because there are going to be them casual fans that like don't necessarily stay on top of all the gaming news, and so everything that they know is probably from those gaming publications. That's probably a good idea. That's why I say that's the only reason why I would say keep them at the game publications, because they're good for that. But other than that, like let Jeff Keighley has the right idea. He's the modern version of what I think it should be. Just doesn't have the budget to make it what E3 was able to do occasionally. And I think if E3 could do what he's doing, but use the budget that they used to use, I think that they would. I think they could easily like take it back.
Yeah. They really they just dropped the ball with those cancellation. Like was it last year they canceled?
Last year.
They canceled like back in January or something, when it wasn't even remotely close to their show. They were so afraid. Things did get better in the summer last year anyway. And it's like that was just a really brain dead, but it's it's LA, it's California. Like I mean honestly, that's how those companies, or how they themselves I think. That was a huge, because you did not have to do that. And I think that took, because I think the year before then, 2021, there was E3, but it was online only. But it wasn't all, like, it was them coming back, I suppose, but it wasn't all that special. It wasn't all that good. And then you had to cancel it. And so you really just kind of killed yourselves. Like you had something a little bit. But again, the sad thing is just with these companies that have left, like the main three, let's say, it's been going down. Like 2018, I think the 2016 I think maybe my favorite. I think 2016 is also when they Sean Layden came out with Crash. That Crash Bandicoot was back. I think that was June of 2016, but that's my fondest one. But then really from that point on, 2017, 2018 was fine, but it started to collapse a little bit. And I don't know, like, is Ubisoft enough to hold E3 up? Like,
I don't think so.
Will Warner Bros. Go? Will say, like, they haven't, like, at the time we're recording this, these answers will probably be given to us in the next couple months or even weeks. Who else is going, right? Like, is Warner Bros. Can they show Wonder Woman there? Because that would be huge. You just got to kind of cherry pick these things, but EA has always kind of been, we'll show it when we want, or we'll do our own thing. Ubisoft did their own Ubisoft Forward things until now. They're going to E3, so I don't really know what they're doing. But I don't know who else you can get, like the Capcom groups, I suppose you could do stuff like that. But again, Jeff Keighley's going to poach some of it. Sony may take some of it. Microsoft will take some of it. And then what you have left is E3 literally just the leftovers after everybody else kind of picked what they want. You know what I mean?
I think honestly they can, as far as the ones that they can get, Ubisoft is not going to be enough to hold it up. But I do see a case where, like Ubisoft is kind of in the same position as E3, right? You're down bad right now, right? And you need. I can see companies that are down bad or trying to rebuild because of, like, not necessarily that these companies get together and say like, okay, we're all in like similar
Yeah.
situations. Like let's like come together. But I do feel like that's a natural thing that happens. I could see smaller studios that maybe were at one time an established studio that's trying to rebuild like a Telltale, like a
Oh yeah.
THQ Nordic. I could see those popping up there. I could see the ones that nobody thinks about are the ones that's trying to crawl out of the hole, easily appearing there, and then they'll probably get a few surprises. It's all in how they manage it, to be quite honest. And then there's the ones that maybe because once again, like E3, as much as we love games, Summer Games Fest, E3 does hold a bigger name. It
Yeah.
is bigger to the casual, and like companies will go with the company that they think is going to get the platform that's going to get their product out there more, and that may play a factor as well. They might like Jeff Keighley, but they're like, listen, like this is a bigger
Yeah.
platform if they can get their stuff together.
It's an
And
event.
so
Like E3 used to be,
yeah,
and you would have like CNN, CNBC. You'd have like actual news, their technology divisions and stuff. They'd go like
hmm yeah, it was the
electronic.
whole event.
Yeah, Electronic Games Expo. Like you'd have stations there. It'd be on TV. It would be written about in newspapers and publications outside of the gaming industry. It was a 5 day or so like actual event, and that is something that Summer Game Fest is not. He's tried to make it the entire month before. Actually, the first year he tried to make it the entire summer. That didn't work.
Yep.
Then he tried to just do June. That was a little bit better. But I think Jeff Keighley's got the day down. Like when he does his show, like it's a show you need to watch, you need to pay attention to. But E3 is like a week.
It's an event.
Yeah,
hmm
that
And
brings
it was
people
something.
in.
Yep, and it was like I think that there was a lot of that aspect before they started inviting crowds out for like the show
Yeah,
itself. But it was always an event. It was even times where like on G4 they would have like how you see now, like there would be like the sectionals like in the auditoriums, and they'd have like different kind of like tents sometimes where they had different places like show off their demos and stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
and they would talk more in depth about the games. But like they would have that, but like they would kind of bring them onto a different stage. Like it wasn't that, I'd say, evolved yet back in the original days of E4, G4, not G4, E3. But I associate the two together. But um,
Too bad
that
this
is the one
G4 couldn't
thing,
be around for it. Heavens know what they would
right?
what they'd be able to do.
Jesus, man, it would. I don't even. They tried it one. They tried it with Summer Games Fest. I think they got an attempt at
Oh,
a
okay.
E3 like event, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but I honestly think that in fact they did. It wasn't as good, but um, I do think that there is room for E3 to definitely not necessarily come back to form, but definitely be the place to go. And there are some things and advantages that they have that I don't think Jeff Keighley could compete with. He can get creative
Yeah.
and do something different and totally like be an alternative, but it's going to be a weird one to watch this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like the Game Awards has the stranglehold on like the market. There's no taking Game Awards away from Jeff. He's done actually a really good job. I personally think with Gamescom. I think Gamescom has
Yep.
been much better under him.
Brilliant.
Summer Game Fest is the lacking, and I think it's just because you tried to do 3 of them in a year is a lot. It's a lot to do in 1 year, and you can't expect them all to be the same level. Game Awards is clearly where he goes all out, and Summer Game Fest tends to be where where he doesn't go all out. But yeah, he's not there. Like that summer, that June period of bringing everything together and giving you're out of that was another thing. I don't know about you. It was probably roughly the same. Like you're ending school, right?
Yep.
And you're a kid, teenager, like. Now, but the funny thing is always that the summer is the worst stretch for games because there's really
Yep.
not like June is pretty okay most years. July is normally completely dead, and August is actually normally dead, and it kind of picks up at the end of August. So what's funny is like E3 growing up for me had always been the thing where it's like, yes, like we're going into the summer, let's get all of these like 50 game announcements you can't keep track of. Like let's do it. And then the funny other side of it is none of these come out this summer. no games actually come out this summer. This is for the future. Did you have the same kind of thing where it's like it's an end of the school year celebration almost?
It was the summer for me when it came to gaming, was always the time to get hyped for gaming.
Yeah.
It was not the time for gaming. And so that's how it was always approached to me. So like the summer I would be playing games that already came out, but I'd be getting excited for future games to come out. But that would also upset me a little bit because the closer to the games I got, the realization was I got to go back to school. Like I will be in school when these games come out. And
Yeah.
so that would be the mindset for me, but it would still be like not necessarily just as enjoyable as playing the game itself, but it was a different type of enjoyment that almost rivals when you finally play the game. Just the excitement of watching it. It's not there yet. This is coming. The possibilities of things that could possibly be in the game. Like it's that thing of not knowing and letting your imagination run wild.
Yeah.
For the possibilities, and that's kind of what it was for me.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's a time of looking for, like, you end school and you get so excited for what's to come, just not what's already there, right? Not what's coming out in the moment. Different, I guess, being an adult. And again, like coming from the gaming industry, I think it's always been looked at as this is a time where everybody kind of gets together. The annoying thing now, right? At least when I was younger, maybe I didn't look at it the same. Also, I think the gaming press has just gotten exponentially worse. I could care less that they all get together at any point, anywhere, right? So the fact that you have all these people from all these different sites and publications being so excited about seeing each other, I think that's like the worst group you could ever throw together, and like you get to do it at each. So as I get older, it almost has a negative thing to me. Maybe that's too harsh, but I have a pretty negative feel of gaming journalists. You know what I mean? Just like seeing all these people I don't really respect, I don't really like, and then this is kind of their like bash, their their welcoming party to each other. It's so obnoxious, and it's actually like what? Here's a question for you. Here's actually how we'll end this. Would you ever go? Because I think you told me before you've never gone, right? I've never gone.
I've never gone.
Would you go?
It's still on my bucket list. It's still on my bucket list to do. I would go to Summer Games Fest, Game Awards, E3.
Which would you choose? Which would be your number one?
E3 would probably be my number one, only because it legitimately is a lifelong goal that I always wanted to do, is just go to E3. Yeah. Regardless of if it's what it used to be or not, I think that I would just still go to say like I went.
That you went to one. Yeah. I mean, that would probably be my only reason to say that. I think I would enjoy the Game Awards or any Jeff Keighley show more, and I would like to go to one of these in my lifetime. And I think maybe as the channel keeps getting bigger, like I think the odds are higher. But at the same time, as the channel gets bigger and as I cover it more, I like covering it from right here. Like I don't want to go to LA in with all these people that I probably don't like to watch it, and then I'm late to covering it because you're watching it, and then you have to go back. And that was the whole thing with IGN. I mean, it was kind of fascinating to always read up on and how much. I mean, because again, like back in the day, they worked. I think they still do, but it's just less talent. They worked really hard. Like they'd stay up all day, every day. They'd be working. They'd have like media rooms in their hotels and stuff. They'd see the stuff. They'd go back. They'd type up articles and podcasts. And I mean, those guys and gals, they all worked extremely hard. And I huge respect for that. I think maybe they still work relatively the same amount. I just don't think the quality is nearly there anymore. But I have great respect for that. But I also feel like that's how I would actually have to do it. Because of how I cover things, I'd have to kill myself to watch and stay up all day and make all these videos. But I'm also late to making the videos. So, yeah, I think more of like a bucket list, like you said, to say I did it. But I'd much rather go. But again, like the Game Awards is also kind of a group of just some of the people that I don't like either.
But the thing that I think the way I look at it is like because I actually did have a friend that went to the Game Awards.
Ooh.
the year before,
Nice.
and she was sitting next to two game developers from I forget, I gotta ask her which studios they were from. But Jesus Christ, she
If
was
they're
like right up to
legends.
the front though, right up to the front. I know she said she was sitting either next to or behind Reggie Fils-Aimé though.
Oh my God.
So it was for me going to the Game Awards. The people that I'm trying to see, there would be like Reggie would be one if he was
Yeah.
there. I would love to see Reggie, but there would be a few. But honestly, it would be like who from like my circle, whether
Yeah.
that be like friends I've met in the space or just the audience that watches us or reads the threads, who from there can I like kind of go there and like, hey, nice to see you, or just see in
Yeah.
person, and just like the people that like come that are not famous or not in the gaming industry would be the ones I would care about getting together.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I think would make it a very good time.
Yeah.
Normally I think I've told you before, like I'm not like I'm an introvert. So I like staying in the house. I like I'm a homebody. Um
Same.
Being around people is a little like daunting for me sometimes. But in certain circumstances I feel like I would be very, very welcoming to just being around other people that are hype and just
Yeah.
excited to that environment. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's they can have their little, circle of like look at how important we are. And we'll just be over here like, yeah,
Yeah.
boo. Like
And that's what, E3 people would, at least in the gaming press, they'd go to bars and stuff afterwards. Like they have their own cliques. And that's, and I can imagine coming from that's very important to them. And that's a cool thing you get to do with your industry friends, which is neat. Like you said, us being, like, I think some of it would be awkward considering it's like
Yep.
the dying age and these famous people, and then the new age, these influence, which, honestly, the Game Awards has done. They brought in like
Yep.
Valkyrae and all these kind of like Twitch streamers and stuff. So Jeff kind of leans on, and like we said before, he leans on streamers. Like he wants that. So, but I wonder how they view each other. I'm sure it's all a fake act when you're there. I wonder how they feel, behind the scenes, where it's again these kind of dying breeded people, and then this new age, Gen Z kind of stuff. How do they get along? But you know what? To be honest, your pitch right there, that probably works best for E3. That may actually would
Yep.
move because E3 multiple
It's an
days
event.
is bigger in a sense. You can do hangouts or meetups with different people. Game Awards, I think, would be a lot harder to do stuff like that. I think that would I've thought of it. Like one day, back when I first started this channel, I'll let you in on a story. I wanted to do one day like a community, I think, to Kind of Funny. That's the kind of the model of when they do their meetups and stuff. And I went to one of the Kind of Funny meetups in California. I always
That's
wanted
awesome.
to do that, like a 100, 200 person theater, and have like a podcast now meetup. I think that would be so freaking fun. And one day, I'm not nearly big enough, but one day I'd like to do it. E3 would probably be the closest thing, right? Because you can put on socials, hey, is anybody here that wants to meet? And then you could do it. So that would be like a short term. But there's a thing too. You can do that now. So even that meetup thing, if you're big enough, you can honestly throw like if Markiplier wants to meet up with people, he can do his own thing. He doesn't have to go to E3. So that's it's an
Exactly.
interesting wrinkle where it's convenient and you can make it work. But also if you are big enough, you have enough money, you can book your own venue. You can do it yourself.
Yep.
So that's another kind of new age thing that I think E3 used to have going for it, but just because it's become more accessible. And the funny thing, last thing I'll say about it, so much of how E3 has died is not even necessarily their fault. I think it's
No.
just it's technology,
The
it's
time.
things innovating, it's companies saying, well, we don't really need to go through you anymore. We can do it ourselves. Not too much. I'm sure they did it to themselves in some ways that I'm not aware of, but I think a lot of it is kind of just the industry's grown up and realized things.
Mm-hmm. The fans, the industry, I think we're seeing the industry still change before our eyes in certain
Yeah.
ways. Like they're going back to certain things that they used to do because they worked better.
Yeah.
And I think that the last I'd say 3 or 4 years industry wide has been like one big experiment. The way I look at it is
Yeah.
like we're gonna try a lot of things. Okay, those things didn't work. Okay, we're financially in a hole. We need to call ourselves out, and I think that we're getting back to a more respectable place. I think the last thing that would have to come is, well, if publications want to save themselves, there's going to be a lot of changes that need to happen.
Yeah.
But um, content creators are the way right now. They are the thing right now, and I think that the best thing that these award shows and these events can do is embrace them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Jeff has done a better job. I've
Great.
said I don't know if I've said it to like the audience, but anybody watching this far, I'll throw a bone. I don't know if I ever said it. I was invited to the Game Awards, not this year, not 2022, not 20. I think 2020. I think the year that everything went bad. I think that because that was the year Jeff did all those. Or no, maybe it was 2021 because Jeff did that whole online thing. Remember, like every couple weeks he would do
Yep.
and I actually did 2 or 3 of them. I was in the blocks, which was really funny. I didn't ask him a question, but I just sat there and watched, and my face was on the screen. And then it could have been 2021. When he came back, he invited a lot of the people that had done that. And so I literally got an email asking, do you want to go? And I said no. So I actually rejected it. But it maybe it would have been a cool story. Maybe I should have gone. One day. Well, any
It all works out.
yeah. Any last thoughts on E3 or any just final goodbyes for the episode?
I want to thank everybody for watching. Actually, if you all can do me a favor, if you do see this episode, tweet me or in the Discord for Podcast Now.
That's me.
Type in if you've ever been to E3.
Oh yeah.
Let us know your stories. Let us know your takes, and even in the comment below, let us know same thing. I want to hear the stories. I want to hear your current thoughts on the state of E3. If you think it'll be a good show this year, if you think that Summer Game Fest is the new E3 and a new spot for everything in the summer, let us know.
Yeah, for sure. And one day, maybe we'll throw it all together, and then a couple of us will meet up at one of these silly little events. Now, thank you all so much for watching. Like I said, hopefully next week we can do some sort of a community thing. We'll bounce back and forth between games that are releasing, other topics that kind of this was Sway's idea. He said, about E3, and we rolled with it. So thank him for this topic, which I thought was excellent and a great idea. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all on the next one.